What would you risk to turn a contract into a love story that defies all expectations? Welcome to Happiness of Love, your daily dose of K-dramas. Get ready to fall in love with unforgettable stories. Can you tell us where are you listening from? On a night that shimmered with promise, Ethan Kong stood at the center of the opulent gala, surrounded by the elite of the business world, the clinking of champagne glasses mingling with the soft murmur of anticipation. The glow reflecting off his impeccably tailored suit concealed an inner turmoil, as his mind raced through the final touches for the engagement of the year. His fiancée, Emma Choi, was to arrive any moment, solidifying their union and, with it, his thriving empire. Just as he turned to scan the crowd, his ice-cold demeanor faltered when Olivia Park, a whirlwind of vibrant energy, burst onto the scene in a radiant gown that emphasized her determination and dreams of stardom. In a fateful moment, Olivia, distracted by a conversation about her career struggles, collided with Ethan. The unexpected crash sent glasses tumbling, laughter erupting, and cameras snapping, capturing their chaos in a flurry of flashes. The looks and gasps of the guests were drowned out by the sound of her heart racing as she registered the glaring eyes of the infamous CEO, whose expression held a mix of surprise and irritation, both captivated and incredulous at the same time. He muttered about the absurdity of the situation, oblivious to the fact that this collision would unravel the carefully woven threads of his meticulously planned life. The following morning, the tabloids erupted with headlines screaming about their passionate rendezvous, speculating wildly that Ethan had disclosed his engagement to Emma for the love of a free-spirited actress. Olivia's heart raced at the sudden intrusion into her life, her dreams threatening to be consumed by chaos. She had been tirelessly fighting for her big break, pouring her soul into auditions and rehearsals. Now, it felt as though she had unwittingly stepped into a melodramatic scene straight out of one of her scripts. The exhilaration and dread battled within her as she checked her phone, each notification hammering home the absurdity of her unexpected connection to a man who was a fortress of control and ambition. Meanwhile, Ethan, grappling with the fallout of last night's bizarre twist, scrolled through the reports with a sense of dread building. Each word twisted the narrative he had so carefully crafted with Emma. His mind raced, fueled by a mixture of frustration and calculation, the sheer madness of it all intensifying the thick, icy wall he had carefully maintained around his heart. Despite this chaos, amidst the rapid-fire questions and assumptions about his elusive emotions, he sensed a flicker of something, a connection ignited by a chance encounter in the chaos of the gala. It was foreign to him, and like all things unfamiliar, it unnerved him. As the days passed, Olivia realized the precariousness of her newfound fame. The rumors could either be the catalyst for her dreams or the death knell for her aspirations. While Ethan thrived in ruthless boardroom battles, she battled the limits of a fickle industry. Each time their names were mentioned together, an involuntary tightness formed in her chest, a mixture of curiosity and anxiety about just how deeply she was now entwined in his world. The sudden entanglement stirred within Ethan a forgotten yearning for something that felt more profound than business mergers or bottom lines. He stood on the precipice of an emotional crisis that threatened to dislodge him from the unyielding path he had walked for years. Conspiracy and connection intertwined, a delicate dance beginning to unfurl in the harsh light of public scrutiny. As the reality of their lives crashed into view, the stakes climbed higher, setting the stage for what neither could have predicted, an unexpected alliance born of necessity and a magnetic pull that would shatter their carefully constructed facades. The atmosphere in the boardroom was thick with tension, every sharp inhale echoing against the polished walls of Kong Media Group's headquarters. Ethan Kong sat at the head of the table, his usually stoic face betraying the whirlwind of emotion swirling within him. The news of Emma Choi's abrupt departure, leaving him standing at the altar, rattled the very foundation of the empire he had carefully built. Shareholders whispered in anxious tones, their faces pinched with concern as they shuffled through papers filled with projections and forecasts. They were demanding stability, and Ethan's every instinct urged him to deliver just that, but with each tick of the clock, he felt the weight of his public humiliation pressing down harder. One board member, a balding man with a calculating gaze, cleared his throat, declaring that without Emma, the merger with a major international firm was in jeopardy and that immediate action had to be taken to quell the impending panic. Desperation settled like a fog, leaving Ethan with a singular thought: he needed a replacement bride, and fast. At that exact moment, he remembered the rumors already swirling around Olivia Park, an up-and-coming actress who had inadvertently found herself captured in the tabloids alongside him due to their fateful collision at the gala. It wasn't just a collision, it had become a scandal that had exploded overnight, painting them as a couple before they had even exchanged a word. Perhaps she could be the solution to his predicament, an unsuspecting ally amidst the chaos. Ethan believed in calculated risks, and as he clutched the edges of the conference table, he realized that he had to seize this opportunity. With swift determination, he reached for his phone, sending a terse message to Olivia, laying out his proposition for a one-year contract marriage to stabilize perceptions and restore confidence in his leadership. He wanted her to see it as a partnership rather than a dubious arrangement. Meanwhile, as Olivia sifted through her fan mail in her studio apartment, a stark contrast to the corporate world Ethan inhabited, her phone buzzed persistently, slicing through her concentration. It was an unexpected invitation to join forces, to entangle her freedom with his suffocating obligations. She read his message with disbelief, her heart racing not with excitement, but with indignation. How dare he think I would just play along to save his reputation? She thought, frustration bubbling within her. Despite her initial rejection of his proposal, as days passed and the scandal pinned her against the wall, she couldn't shake the weight of her predicament. Roles began to slip through her fingers, casting a shadow over her aspirations. It gnawed at her insides, and the thought of losing her dream project became more pressing than the notion of risking her integrity. In a moment of despair, she found herself reconsidering his offer with a pang of cynicism. When she finally agreed to meet Ethan in his sleek office overlooking the bustling city streets, the air was thick with unspoken words. The lavish decor of his office seemed to mock her with its perfection as he detailed the terms of their unusual agreement. "It will only be a year," he said, his voice steady yet devoid of warmth. His gaze penetrated deep, trying to convey sincerity in a game built on pretense. Olivia, dressed in her favorite flannel shirt and jeans, felt like an intruder in his world, shying away from the tight grip of his corporate allure. She responded indignantly that there was nothing appealing about acting the part of his dutiful wife, even temporarily. Yet her defiance wavered as she considered the mounting pressure in her career, the scrutiny that awaited her should she refuse. Wasn't this just another role, albeit a dangerous one? Perhaps the gig would secure her the legitimacy she needed in an industry that thrived on narratives. Struggling against the uncomfortable balance of ethics and ambition, she found herself nodding almost against her will. "Fine, but this doesn't mean we'll be a real couple," she said, not trusting the tremor in her voice. Ethan merely observed her with that inscrutable expression, recognizing her fiery spirit masked beneath layers of uncertainty. With their contract finalized, the rules were strict: no emotional involvement, complete compliance in public, and a year-long expiration date. The boundaries rooted firmly in place, Olivia moved into Ethan's penthouse, an ornate sanctuary that starkly contrasted with her humble upbringing, its minimalist elegance almost suffocating her vibrant energy. Their first evening was a cacophony of disarray. Olivia's laughter filled the space while Ethan, with his straight-backed posture, attempted to maintain his facade of order. It was apparent from the start that their opposing lifestyles clashed spectacularly, the tension igniting playful banter, yet moments of awkward silence hung between them like a fragile glass. As Olivia tripped over her own feet while trying to navigate the pristine floor, Ethan caught her reflexively, and the sound of his heart thudding against his ribcage startled him. "Careful, this isn't a playground," he had muttered, attempting to mask the spark igniting in his chest. Their initial interactions became a dance of misunderstanding and reluctant acceptance, with Olivia's whimsical spontaneity shaking the rigid confines of Ethan's meticulously structured life. But lurking in the background, Kevin Hahn, a journalist whose sharp instincts had already sensed the cracks in their story, was on the hunt. His relentless pursuit of the truth promised to unravel the delicate threads of their arrangement and expose the sincerity or lack thereof between Ethan and Olivia. While they put on a brave front to the world, behind closed doors was a complex tapestry of emotions that neither of them was willing to confront. The looming threat from Kevin intensified with each passing day, and as scandals spun from their facade, Ethan found himself caught in a net of unexpected feelings that he had believed himself immune to. The boundary between pretense and reality blurred with every passing moment, stirring an air of uncertainty about the contract that was supposed to protect them, and onward they moved, threading their way through deception and unforeseen attachments. As the contract was finalized, a palpable tension hung in the air, binding Ethan and Olivia with unspoken expectations. The document was a legal shield intended to protect both the Kong Media Group and Olivia's fledgling career, meticulously outlining strict rules: no emotional involvement, complete public compliance, and a stipulated one-year expiration. Each word written felt like a shackle to Olivia, who loathed the idea of being anyone's pawn, especially for a man like Ethan, whose stoic demeanor left her questioning the validity of their arrangement. When she finally moved into Ethan's penthouse, the sleek, minimalist design felt suffocating, a far cry from her vibrant, chaotic life filled with color and spontaneity. Ethan's controlled world clashed violently with her breath of fresh air. She was a bright brushstroke on a blank canvas, and it unnerved him to his core. As she unpacked her belongings, her laughter ricocheted off the pristine walls, a stark contrast to Ethan's calculated silence. She carelessly tossed a pair of her shoes, sending them skidding across the marble floor, to which Ethan responded by furrowing his brow, trying to maintain some semblance of order in his meticulously arranged living space. It wasn't long before she stepped into the overly formal kitchen, decorated with top-of-the-line appliances, and remarked how it felt like a sterile laboratory rather than a heart of the home, earning a displeased glance from Ethan as he murmured about the importance of efficiency in such spaces. Their mornings began with Olivia playing music that echoed like sunlight through the darkness of Ethan's early morning routines, the cheerful melodies clashing with his serious demeanor. She would whirl through the apartment in her colorful robes, sipping coffee and leaving behind a haze of warmth and chaos that seemed to breathe life into the otherwise quiet space. This drew Ethan's irritated comments, which she simply brushed off with a giggle. "Lighten up, Kong. Not everything needs to be perfectly planned." His cool facade was beginning to crack under the weight of this unexpected partnership. Olivia's presence evoked feelings he had long buried beneath layers of corporate armor. He found himself stealing glances of her in moments when she was lost in thought, her expressive features glowing with youthful ambition, and the sight made his heart twitch with an unfamiliar ache. Meanwhile, their public appearances were a whirlwind of tension and forced smiles, as both tried to navigate their new facade. At high-end events, the click of cameras would punctuate Olivia's laughter while Ethan stood beside her, stiff and uncomfortable, yet there was something electrifying about the way they painted a picture that seemed too perfect to be real. Just as some warmth began to flood the icy chasms of Ethan's heart, trouble brewed on the horizon. Journalists were buzzing none more so than Kevin Hahn, the tenacious reporter who had a nose for scandal and a knack for uncovering truths. He had sniffed the scent of something not adding up in their story, and his instincts told him the supposed fairy tale was laced with a darker undertone. Every glance, smile, and touch between them was scrutinized, and he meticulously pieced together moments from red carpets to casual outings, readying himself for one explosive expose. Ethan remained oblivious to the brewing storm felt in the media circles, too preoccupied with learning to manage this sudden whirlwind of emotion that Olivia brought into his life. Olivia, although spreading sunshine into his world, was battling her doubts about their arrangement. Each forced kiss for the cameras left a bitter aftertaste, lingering longer than she cared to admit. She hated that their connection, built on the fragments of mutual need, was becoming more complex than she had anticipated, and every mention of Emma Choi felt like a phantom chilling the air around them. The clinking of glasses at elite dinners no longer sounded celebratory, and their charade began to feel like a worn-out script with too many ad-libs and not enough heart. With every glance exchanged, she could feel the boundaries blur, but the shadows of Ethan's guarded heart whispered cautions that were hard to ignore. What had started as a strategic maneuver spiraled quickly, the emotional involvement they both were warned against seemed inevitable, and somewhere underneath the surface, their hearts were beginning to take notice. The days morphed into a whirlwind of elite gatherings and high-profile events for Ethan and Olivia, each step they took on the opulent red carpets pushing them deeper into the pretense of their contract marriage. As they prepared for a glitzy industry gala, Olivia found herself in front of the mirror, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The designer gown she wore clung to her figure, a striking blend of midnight blue and shimmering sequins that caught the light with every movement, and as she turned, she caught a glimpse of Ethan in the doorway. He leaned against the frame, his usual stoic expression softening just for a moment as he took in her beauty. She felt the warmth of his gaze envelop her, and for a fleeting second, Olivia believed she saw admiration sparkling in his eyes, pushing aside thoughts of their charade, if only for a moment. Ethan, battling the conflicting emotions stirring inside him, swallowed hard, remembering how his heart had always been encased in ice, yet he found himself wanting to know more about this woman who seemed to have melted his defenses. He said that she looked stunning, and the words slipped out before he could rein them in, only for the usual barriers he maintained to crack ever so slightly. The compliments felt foreign to him, but there was something about Olivia that made the words taste sweeter, more sincere than he had intended. As they descended the staircase together, intertwining their arms like a real couple, the air in the house buzzed with a charged energy. Cameras flashed as they emerged into the blinding lights of the gala, the buzz of the crowd echoing around them as they became the center of attention. Throughout the night, amid clinking glasses and muted laughter, they maneuvered their way through conversations with industry insiders, Ethan expertly steering the dialogue to cultivate their fabricated love story. Yet, as the evening progressed, the facade began to crack. At one point, Olivia caught herself laughing at one of Ethan's dry jokes, and she realized that despite their agreement to maintain emotional distance, her heart was unexpectedly willing to connect with him. He looked at her with a rare blend of intrigue and desire, and she sensed that beneath his businesslike exterior, a different Ethan was emerging, one who was beginning to enjoy her presence. As Olivia twirled in her gown, she caught the eye of a renowned director, whose admiration ignited a spark of confidence within her. She beamed at Ethan, and he responded by instinctively complimenting her smile with his own, a gesture more genuine than he meant to express. The media, perpetually hungry for fresh stories, captured their synchronous laughter and stolen glances, spinning the narrative of their relationship. Behind the glossy headlines, a genuine chemistry brewed, yet lurking in the background was the specter of Emma Choi, who seemed to reappear at the most inopportune times. In a sudden twist of fate, Emma emerged from the crowd like a scene from a forgotten play, her presence commanding attention as she approached Ethan and Olivia with an air of authority that sent shivers down Olivia's spine. Barely acknowledging Olivia, Emma's eyes locked onto Ethan, revealing a hint of the unresolved feelings she still harbored for him. She said that it was a surprising coincidence to see Ethan at such an elite gathering, her melodic voice dripping with passive aggression, and the playful air around them began to thicken with tension. Olivia felt her stomach twist in knots as Emma's mere presence cast shadows over the evening, stirring something deep and unsettling within her. Ethan, momentarily caught off guard, forced himself to respond with the neutral tone of a businessman, but Olivia could see how his jaw clenched just slightly. The air shifted as they navigated the conversation. The fabric of their relationship frayed at the edges as Emma slyly inquired about their marriage, an innocuous question that held the weight of their contract. Olivia's heart raced as jealousy bubbled within her. She fought the urge to assert herself as Ethan's partner, knowing the fragility of the role she played. She maintained a polished smile, conjuring feelings of insecurity as she struggled to understand her emotions amidst this manufactured glamour. Throughout the rest of the gala, Ethan found himself increasingly aware of Olivia's subtle reactions, the way her laughter faltered, and how her gaze wandered. He marveled at her strength, but also felt a pang of protectiveness that emerged from a place he had long suppressed. Unbeknownst to him, Olivia watched a flicker of vulnerability in Ethan, exposing cracks in his otherwise impenetrable facade. As the media continued to fawn over them, she began to wonder just how far this charade would take them and whether these moments of connection would morph into something genuine before it was too late. In the midst of the glamorous chaos, both of them stood at a precipice, dangling over a chasm of potential love while a cloud of unresolved feelings and hidden motives loomed ominously in the background. As the days passed, the tension between Olivia and Ethan evolved into something more complex. Each stolen glance held unspoken words and each casual touch lingered like electric sparks, yet both struggled to decipher what their growing attraction truly meant. Their contract marriage, initially structured and devoid of emotional entanglements, became increasingly complicated as the line between pretense and reality blurred. Olivia threw herself into her work, determined to maintain a sense of independence even as thoughts of Ethan crept into her mind, consuming her during quiet moments and demanding her attention in the bustle of the film sets. Kevin Hahn, the relentless journalist, honed in on the slightest detail surrounding their partnership, digging deeper into their lives, sniffing out the truth like a wolf on a hunt, his instincts sharpening with every revelation. It was during a business trip to Jeju Island, meant to solidify the strategic partnership between Kong Media Group and a prestigious film distribution company, that the storm finally broke. The skies darkened unexpectedly, transforming from a clear blue to an ominous gray within moments. Lurking clouds unleashed torrential rain as Olivia and Ethan hurriedly found shelter in a luxurious hotel, their original plans washed away along with the sun. As they entered the suite, a sense of unease settled in the air, charged by the intimacy of the space that now felt overwhelmingly small, and the reality of their situation began to settle upon Olivia's shoulders. Dripping wet and slightly disoriented, she watched as Ethan paced the room, his usual composure rattled by circumstances beyond their control. He glanced out the window, furrowed brows deepening, and Olivia took a moment to study him, his sharp jawline, the way the light cast shadows across his features, and the tension in his shoulders hinted at an inner battle. After a few moments of small talk, the exhaustion of travel and the stress from the whirlwind of their lives caught up with them. Ethan's facade of indifference cracked ever so slightly, revealing the man who hid beneath the polished exterior. He said that he hadn't slept well recently, his voice drained of its usual strength, and Olivia felt an ache in her heart, an unfamiliar sensation she was desperate to fight against. She felt pulled to him, the deep-rooted trauma from his parents' loveless marriage suddenly palpable in the way he avoided vulnerability, how he walled himself off from the very idea of love. Each confession dripped with a sort of melancholy that resonated with the echoes of her own struggles, the defenses she had built through years of fighting for her place in the world. When the storm intensified, the power flickered and gave way to darkness, leaving them cocooned in silence, broken only by the sound of rain tapping against the window. Olivia sat on the edge of the plush sofa, quietly observing Ethan as he paced with restless energy. He spoke about his childhood, how he learned early on to guard his heart, saying that love was a game he couldn't afford to play, his words tinged with a sadness that tugged at her heartstrings. In that moment, Olivia's defenses crumbled, and she reached out instinctively, grasping his hand as he turned to face her. The warmth of her touch seemed to anchor him, jolting him out of his dark thoughts. She said that everyone deserved love, that love was not a transaction but a beautiful adventure. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, she saw the vulnerability he desperately tried to hide, the fear of being hurt lurking behind his steely exterior. The storm outside raged on, but inside the room, a different kind of storm began to churn, filled with uncertainty and burgeoning emotions. As the hours passed, their conversation drifted into softer territory, laughter punctuating the room as they shared their hopes, dreams, and fears. Olivia found herself leaning closer, the distance between them diminishing until it felt as if invisible strings were pulling them together. She felt a rush of warmth, a pang of yearning that scared her yet excited her. She began to worry that this wasn't just a facade, that her heart was betraying her as it beat faster in Ethan's presence. The safe barrier of their contract was beginning to dissolve into something rawer and more tender. As the rain continued to pour, Olivia lay awake in the large, lavish bed, her thoughts a tempest swirling beneath the comforter. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was getting in over her head, that falling for Ethan would only lead to heartache. Then again, a part of her relished the warmth blooming within, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could rewrite the narrative of their lives. She felt the urge to reach out and share this realization with him, to confess her inner turmoil, yet the weight of her silence hung thick in the air. Ethan, too, lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words in his mind. For the first time in years, the icy walls he had erected around his heart trembled, and he dared to hope. As dawn broke, the storm faded, leaving a sense of calm and a new uncertainty about what the day would bring, yet both were acutely aware that they were teetering on the precipice of something they had both sworn to avoid, something that felt achingly real. The air was thick with anticipation and a touch of glamour as flashing cameras illuminated the grand venue of the charity event, designed to showcase the benevolent nature of the entertainment industry. Olivia Park stood in the midst of the crowd, her smile radiant as she mingled with the elite, yet a flutter of anxiety gripped her heart. The whispers began softly, like a mere rustle among leaves, but soon escalated into an unrelenting storm of skepticism surrounding her talent and worthiness as an actress. She could feel the pointed gazes of seasoned industry veterans, their eyes dissecting her every move, assessing if she was truly deserving of the accolades she had recently begun to accumulate. In a world where the line between genuine talent and privilege could blur, Olivia felt the weight of the doubt, clawing at her confidence, and she longed for a moment of reassurance amidst the chaos. As the evening progressed, Olivia fought hard to elevate the mood, cracking jokes and engaging in light-hearted banter with those around her, but in the corners of the hall, she caught sight of Ethan Kong, his presence imposing yet steadfast. Dressed in tailored black, he seemed like a statue carved out of stone, observing the scene with his usual calculated demeanor, but she could sense a flicker of concern in his piercing gaze directed towards her. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, he communicated a silent understanding, a reassurance that spoke volumes without uttering a word. However, the facade of strength Olivia wore began to crack as the whispers became a crescendo, questions about her authenticity ringing in her ears, drowning out her bravado. Feeling the suffocating pressure of the judgment enveloping her, Olivia stepped away from the crowd, searching for a small breath of relief, but instead found herself cornered by a well-known reporter, eager to capitalize on the gossip swirling around her. Just as she began to respond to the inquiries, her spirit began to wane with each pointed question, and moments later, Ethan's voice cut through the noise with an unexpected fervor. He stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the persistent press, his tone firm yet protective as he declared that Olivia was not just a mere puppet of circumstance but a talented actress who had worked tirelessly to reach where she stood today. The room fell silent, astonished at his sudden outburst, the gravity of his words echoing with authenticity and conviction. The atmosphere shifted, the tension thickening as Ethan continued to lament the superficiality of their industry, his voice resonating with a deep-seated passion that Olivia had not witnessed from him before. Her heart raced as she absorbed the fervor in his defense, feeling a warmth spread through her as he stood boldly for her when the world had seemed ready to cast her aside. In a moment that felt paradoxical yet electrifying, he leaned closer, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Suddenly, without a moment's hesitation and driven by a surge of emotion, he captured her lips with his, a soft yet commanding kiss that lit the atmosphere ablaze. Cameras clicked incessantly, capturing the unexpected intimacy that had unfolded between them, and for that fleeting second, the world around them fell away, inundated by a pulsating chemistry that neither could deny. As the kiss ended, both pulled back slightly, breathless and startled, a wave of realization flooding their senses. They had crossed an unspoken line, one that blurred the realm between their staged relationship and something deeper, something real they hadn't acknowledged until that precise moment. Ethan, with his typically emotionless exterior slightly cracked, searched Olivia's eyes for confirmation of what had just transpired, but the moment of vulnerability vanished as they both retreated into a guarded silence, uncertain of what lay ahead. The air buzzed with speculation, yet within that electric atmosphere, an intricate tension burgeoned between them, one that neither could shake off. Over the ensuing days, despite their successful media portrayal as a couple, an undeniable distance sprang into existence. Their interactions became a blend of avoidance and longing, as Ethan remained trapped in the conflict of his emotions. He wanted to reach out, to say something, but the fear of exposing his newfound feelings gripped him fiercely. Olivia, on the other hand, felt a torrent of confusion overwhelm her, wondering if their moment had meant more than a fleeting spark or if it had only been another deception in their tangled game. The whispers of the industry continued to swirl, but more hauntingly, it was now the unaddressed sentiments between them that lingered like a ghost, a strenuous tension that crackled in every shared glance, making the air around them feel charged with possibilities, yet fraught with uncertainty about what would happen next. As the days blurred into nights, Olivia found herself lost in a whirlpool of emotions, oscillating between disbelief and a burgeoning affection for Ethan that she dare not acknowledge. The facade of their contract marriage sat heavy upon her shoulders as she navigated gala events and red carpets. Each time she stepped into the spotlight beside him, she felt a flicker of something genuine ignite within, leaving her to ponder whether this charade could possibly evolve into something real. The whimsical laughter they shared and the quiet moments spent between their chaotic schedules were becoming harder to distinguish from mere acting. Ethan, on the other hand, stood at the divide between his heart and his mind. The lessons from his childhood echoed painfully in his thoughts, shaping the vow he made to never allow love to invade his meticulous life, a vow that now felt increasingly fragile with Olivia's laughter and warmth permeating his carefully constructed walls. He spent long nights in his penthouse, staring at the city lights, wondering what it would mean to relinquish control and embrace the feelings stirring inside him with increasing urgency. However, a lingering fear strangled his heart, a phantom echo of his past reminding him that vulnerability invited pain, and no one knew this better than he did. His restless nights devolved into thoughts of Olivia, a woman who defied convention and lived unabashedly, contrasting sharply against his own dictated existence. Unbeknownst to Ethan, Kevin Hahn had been diligently piecing together the puzzle of their relationship, his instincts honing in on the undeniable truth behind the facade that held both scandal and intrigue. Late one evening, while Olivia prepared for yet another industry event, the weight of impending exposure clawed at the edges of her psyche, leaving her anxious. She could feel the pressure growing, and the heaviness in the air made her heart race. It was in this vulnerable state that she found herself facing Ethan, alone in the quiet of the penthouse, the distant rhythm of the city a mere background hum to the palpable tension swirling between them. In a moment defined by fragility, she turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears, the hesitation evident in her voice as she admitted that she felt the lines between their act and reality growing increasingly blurred. She confessed that the laughter, the moments shared, she didn't know what was real or a performance anymore. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, and for the first time, the polished mask of the CEO slipped, his deep gaze revealing the turmoil within. He wanted to reach out, to tell her that everything felt real to him, that her presence awakened something unnameable inside. Yet, he remained paralyzed, trapped under the weight of the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air between them. Silence stretched like an elastic band, taut and unyielding, as Olivia took a tentative step back, as though retreating from a battlefield where they were both unarmed. She felt a defeat that scraped against her heart, mixed with confusion that painted her thoughts with shades of anxiety. Keith Hahn's relentless pursuit loomed like a dark cloud over them, and she wanted to scream that what they had wasn't simply a contract but something that was slowly intertwining their fates. Yet, in that suffocating silence, Ethan could only shake his head, the regrets brewing in the shadows of his heart shackling him in place. They stood on the precipice of something profound, yet the abyss between them felt insurmountable as the atmosphere thickened with unexpressed fears, leaving them both questioning whether they'd prepared for the consequences of their choices. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Ethan's penthouse, casting long shadows that mirrored the turmoil in his heart. The news had broken overnight. The contract marriage, once young and innocent in their naivete, was now a topic of scandal across media outlets. Olivia's face appeared on screens nationwide, her expression a mix of heartbreak and outrage, and he could practically hear the whispers of speculation piercing through the air like daggers. She had become the pariah of the entertainment world, ruthlessly dissected and judged by those who had once admired her talent. Ethan knew, in that moment, that he was to blame, yet the weight of those words felt heavier than anything he had ever endured. He had learned to shield himself from emotions, to build a fortress around his heart, but Olivia had transformed that fortress into a fragile shell, and now, it was crumbling around him. Feeling betrayed, Olivia packed her bags with shaking hands, each piece of clothing a bittersweet reminder of the warmth that had once filled the cold air of the penthouse. The very place where laughter had resonated now echoed with silence, punctuated by her heavy heartbeats. She glanced in the mirror, her reflection revealing red-rimmed eyes and a determined frown. She was as fierce as ever, yet the softness Ethan had brought to her life was overshadowed by a sense of profound loss. She said that it was time to reclaim her independence, to refuse to be a pawn in a game that had turned sour. But deep down, she recognized the ache in her chest, a longing for the connection that had grown between them, a genuine bond amidst the deception. Outside, reporters buzzed like bees, anxious to capture her every move, not realizing the vulnerability behind her resolve. Ethan watched from the window, feeling his heart twist painfully as he saw her step into a waiting car, her figure disappearing into the chaos of the world that now deemed her unworthy. The glint of tears threatened to spill from his eyes as he slammed a fist against the wall, the sound echoing in the emptiness of his once vibrant life. He had built his empire on ruthless decisions, on the icy logic of numbers and projections, but none of that prepared him for the sheer loss he felt when Olivia walked away. She had infiltrated his heart like a summer storm, wild and beautiful, and now he was left with nothing but the aftermath of vacancy that echoed through every fiber of his being. Days passed, yet each felt like an eternity for Ethan. The weight of his responsibilities grew heavier, the board meetings turned into a blur of faces and voices that barely registered in his mind. Amidst the chatter of business strategies and profit margins, his thoughts wandered to her laughter, her spirited debates about life, love, and dreams. She had ignited a fire deep within him, challenging his views and breaking through the tough exterior he had worked so hard to maintain. In the solitude of his office, he scrolled through their shared photographs, memories frozen in time, capturing smiles that now felt like distant dreams. He realized that Olivia had become more than a contractual obligation. She was a muse, igniting a passion he had buried long ago. As the pressure from the business world mounted to move on, Ethan grappled with the haunting realization that Olivia was never just a temporary fix for his public image. She had woven herself into his very essence, and now, he felt her absence like an aching wound. He paced in his office, each step echoing with indecision. What was the point of being a successful CEO if his heart was left empty? He thought about how he had allowed himself to be vulnerable in her presence, a privilege he had seldom extended to anyone. His fingers brushed against his temples, seeking clarity amidst the chaos. He needed to reach out to her, to make her understand that his heart, calloused and guarded for years, had been discovering new depths, and those depths were hers to explore. That night, he stood on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below him like stars fallen to earth. With every breath he took, the cold air felt intoxicating, yet suffocating, haunted by the memory of Olivia's laughter. He had always kept his distance from love, convinced it would lead only to pain, yet now, in the stifling silence of his penthouse, he wondered if the pain of losing Olivia was what true heartbreak felt like. In a moment of reckless abandon, he picked up his phone, dialing Richard Lee, his trusted advisor and friend. He said that he needed to talk, that he had made a terrible mistake and would do anything to win Olivia back, yet his voice trembled with the vulnerability he had long feared. As Richard listened, Ethan could almost see the knowing look in his friend's eyes, a look that said love was worth the risk if only he would allow himself to feel. Ethan stood at the edge of his office balcony, the cool evening breeze ruffling his tailored suit as he gazed out over the cityscape of Seoul, illuminated by a sea of twinkling lights beneath a dusky sky. It was a moment of clarity amidst the chaos that had consumed his life since Olivia walked away, the realization of his love for her flooding his heart with both warmth and dread. He thought of Richard Lee's words, echoing in his mind with urgency, urging him to embrace his true feelings before he lost her forever. He recalled how Richard had leaned back in his chair, lips pursed thoughtfully, as he advised that love was a risk worth taking, even for someone like Ethan, who had spent a lifetime surrounding himself with control and rationality. Inspired by this newfound resolve, Ethan knew he could no longer hide behind the cold facade that had once defined him, wrestling with the fear of vulnerability that clung to his conscience like a shadow. As evening descended, he made the decision that would alter the course of his life. Ethan contacted a television network, knowing that Olivia's televised drama premiere was fast approaching. He understood that to win her back, he had to shed the armor of business acumen that had shielded him and step into the world of emotions he had long avoided. Days later, on the night of Olivia's premiere, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement, tension hanging palpably in the air as fans crowded around the venue. Ethan arrived incognito, blending into the guests until the moment he was sure Olivia would step onto the stage, her hard work and dedication culminating in this spectacular event. With the press swirling around like a tempest, whispers and shouts of anticipation engulfed him. He felt the ache of his heart as he watched her grace the red carpet, glowing in a stunning gown, her presence igniting a mix of admiration and longing from those in attendance. But amidst the glittering spectacle, he could see the shadows of doubt lingering in her eyes, doubt sown by the treacherous rumors that had turned her into a target. Summoning the courage buried deep within him, Ethan stepped forward, his heart racing with each determined stride. The weight of every gaze turned toward him felt like the world was watching their every move, yet he pressed on, crossing the line that defined his existence. Upon reaching the stage, he could feel the air shift. The expectant silence was deafening as all eyes were drawn to him. As he took the microphone, a chorus of gasps echoed through the crowd. He looked straight into Olivia's eyes, standing stunned yet regal as he felt the words forming within him. In that moment, the rehearsals of what he might say evaporated, and the rawness of feeling took precedence. He spoke with fervor, his voice breaking through the silence of the crowd like a beacon as he declared that their contract marriage had started as a mere business arrangement, yet somehow evolved into something far more profound. He admitted that he had fought against his true emotions, held back by the chains of past traumas, but here and now, he stood before her, vulnerable for the first time, ready to renounce the fortress surrounding his heart. He continued, revealing the turmoil that had consumed him, saying that Olivia was never just a temporary fixture in his life, she became an irreplaceable part of him. Amidst the flashing cameras and the awestruck audience, he confessed, each word resonating with sincerity, cutting through the noise of judgment surrounding them. He promised to stand by her side against any storm, a promise to fight for their love that had flourished amidst the chaos. As he spoke, he felt the weight of Olivia's gaze, filled with conflicting emotions, hurt mingled with surprise, and perhaps, just perhaps, a flicker of hope. Every syllable felt like a bridge rebuilding what had been lost, transforming the air between them into a tangible connection once more. And as he concluded his declaration, the world outside felt suspended in time, as he implored her to trust him, to see him as he truly was, and to forgive him for the pain that had kept them apart. Olivia's breath caught in her throat as she listened, conflicted yet undeniably touched by Ethan's honesty, the very honesty that had been absent when it mattered the most. She saw, in the depths of his expression, a man stripped of his armor, bare before her in sincerity, conveying the depth of his feelings. It was a moment that shattered the barriers they had both constructed, laying bare the truth they had hidden from themselves. As Ethan stepped back, hopeful, the fears of rejection clawing at him, he silently willed her to respond, to recognize their intertwined hearts and everything they had endured. Olivia found herself torn between the hurt of betrayal and the undeniable spark that still lingered between them. The intensity of the moment threatened to engulf them, the air becoming thick with emotion as she stared into his eyes, feeling a rush of warmth flood her senses. The world around them faded into the background as time seemed to stretch indefinitely, the realization of their unspoken bond hanging in the air, a fragile yet resilient thread weaving their destinies together once more. In that pivotal instant, Ethan fought against the pulse of trepidation within, hoping she could see beyond the veil of their tumultuous history, while Olivia battled the instinct to protect her heart from the wounds of yesterday. She understood the weight of his words, resonating deep within her, awakening the love that had taken root when they least expected it, during the most unlikely of circumstances. The journey of the past months flashed through her mind, the laughter, the shared moments of vulnerability, the undeniable chemistry that had developed between them, igniting a yearning that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. It was in this revelation that Olivia began to realize that perhaps their story was meant to unfold in a way neither of them had anticipated. As the silence stretched, both knew that the future of their relationship hung delicately in the balance, each heartbeat echoing the unyielding truth that lay waiting to be embraced. As the glittering lights of the award ceremony dimmed, the infectious anticipation in the air seemed to pulse with excitement, mirroring the palpable affection radiating from Ethan and Olivia as they stood together, the very picture of a couple in love. The audience erupted into applause when their names were announced for the Best Couple Award, a fitting tribute to their journey from a contract marriage to genuine partners, capturing hearts not only on screen but in real life. Standing at the podium, Olivia felt the warmth of Ethan's gaze, a striking contrast to the cold business world he once dominated. She thanked everyone, her voice steady yet emotional, recounting how their shared experiences forged a bond that transcended mere contractual obligations. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, a public promise of his commitment, and she smiled, knowing they had faced adversity together and emerged victorious. Yet, amid the chaos of their blissful moment, a mysterious figure lingered in the shadows, an old connection tied to Ethan's painful past. As the applause faded and they stepped off the stage, a familiar but unwelcome face approached them, Emma Choi, eyes ablaze with unspoken words and buried emotions. The air thickened with tension as Olivia and Ethan exchanged a glance, a silent agreement forming between them. "We can handle this," Ethan reassured, his voice low but firm, and Olivia nodded, realizing that no matter the weight of the past, their love was a fortress against any threat. Just as they prepared to embrace what came next, a phone buzzed insistently in Ethan's pocket. He glanced at the screen, his expression quickly transforming from calm to alarmed as he read the urgent message, a warning about Kevin Hahn's next big story, one that could unravel everything they had built. Olivia's heart raced, the shadow of doubt creeping back in as they stepped out of the spotlight, the world suddenly aware of the fragility of their happiness. But as Ethan took her hand, she felt the strength of his resolve mingling with her determination. The journey ahead was unclear, shrouded with both excitement and peril, yet together, they were ready to face anything. Behind them, the audience cheered, unaware that the real story had just begun, leaving readers at the edge of their seats, craving to discover what awaited Ethan and Olivia as they bravely ventured into their next chapter. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Happiness of Love. That way, you won't miss any of our heartfelt romances. See you in the next love story.